Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 32 of this awesome, amazing Osu Let's Play series. In the last episode, I touched on double time and some intricacies, I guess, about the mod. And in this episode, I want to talk about the easy mod and sort of how to get into it, how to sort of tackle such high note density. Before we get into that, though, I want to shout out, as usual, that I live stream every single day over at twitch.tv/DigitalHypno. So if you have not already stopped by and said hello, I'd be very, very happy to see you guys there if you want to hang out with me or just watch me play this game live, anything like that. And bonus points also, if you tell me that you came from this Let's Play series, I will be very, very happy to see you there. So yes, let's get started. So for this episode, I'm going to be using a different skin and I will talk about why, but this skin that is actually, so it's named Sure. It's the skin of the player named Sure, and I think I edited it a long time ago to change the cursor, but other than that, the skin is very similar to the default skin. If you notice, pretty much everything looks default, except for like a couple small things. But okay, I will get into why a little later, but so let's turn on the easy mod, or for short, if I turn this off, you can press F1 and then Q. It's the hotkey for easy, and then press escape. So the notable characteristic of easy mod is the drastic decrease in AR. Although if you notice, so what the mod does is it decreases all the settings by, it cuts them all in half. So actually if I turn this off again, so CS4, AR9, etc. And then CS2, AR 4.5 and all that. So the star rating decrease mostly comes from the circle size decrease, I would say, because star rating is not very good at judging difficulty by node density or approach rate or any of the other things. So it's mostly the CS that actually changes the star difficulty and a little else. So yes, try not to get misled by the star rating though, because definitely the node density makes the mod very, very difficult, much harder than the star rating might suggest. But yes, so I think the most notable characteristic about easy mod, or like what's necessary, is well, people call it a reading mod, right? You really have to be able to read very well, and that typically, oh shoot, oh, it feels very quiet. Okay, there we go. Oh, okay, what volume, any volume changers? Okay. That's mostly in the form of, oh no, it feels too loud. Okay. Wait, what's up with my volume settings? Oh, I have it maxed out. Okay, so the reading requirement for easy mod is mostly in the form of what's called chunking. And that is basically like being able to split patterns up into like separate digestible sections. Basically, like you see one pattern and you split it into separate parts. And it's something, okay, so I'm sure some of you may already be familiar with the term chunking. And if you're not, I would probably recommend watching the. Okay, so if you really want to get into like the nitty gritty and hear what a lot of different other top players have to say about it, I would suggest watching the Osu University interviews on mindblock, because we touched a lot on chunking in that episode as well. Got some reading professionals in those interviews, so definitely worth a listen if you guys are interested. But yeah, I think the two most important things for easy mod are chunking and I guess rhythm sense, or just like being able to play to the music and sort of knowing what rhythm is probably coming based on the music. But okay, so let's talk a bit about what I mean by chunking. So basically remembering patterns, like instead of okay, it gets very tricky sometimes, easy mod, but remembering patterns by like multiple, or like in small bits rather than each individual circle, and also rather than yeah, remembering patterns by like, okay, so instead of by each individual circle, and also instead of like the entire pattern at once, like you want to sort of split it into like very simple steps, and that's usually I think like 2 or 3 notes. They sort of process the pattern in okay, how to describe this? Okay, so there's so much going on the screen at once, and for that reason, you need to be able to play it in like simple steps. Okay, it's so hard to explain. Actually, Okay, let me try to find another map in this list that's sort of... Okay, yeah, okay. It's probably easier to explain on a map like this. This map's a lot more jumpy. I think in jump maps, it's a lot easier to explain. Okay, so so I suspect that if I look in the editor, yeah, okay, so jumps like this. Okay, so chunking is basically like... Okay, actually, I don't even know if if this is a good example of chunking. Okay, hold on. Okay, we can probably use this map anyway. Okay, so okay, this is probably a good pattern to focus on chunking. So basically, instead of seeing it, so this is like some linear single tap, and then it's sort of like a pentagon, four notes of a pentagon, and it might be a bit tricky to like snap to each note here, and you might actually just sort of curve your cursor to sort of see as one thing. But what chunking is all about is splitting it into simpler steps and focusing on each step one at a time. So if I press the Q button here, this sort of changes the new combo of the the circle so that you can visualize this a bit better. But basically, in this little jump section, instead of just seeing it as like one giant thing, you probably want to focus on the first two notes first as its own step, and then you can focus on the next two notes here as its own step as well. A bit convoluted, maybe. Okay, so chunking is typically explained with squares actually, but there's no squares in this map. Hopefully that gets the point across. Actually, I can explain it with squares too. Let me just make a square over here. So this is a scuffed explanation of chunking. I'm pretty sure, I think Wowie has a video on chunking as well, if you go to his YouTube channel. But anyway, basically, you have this giant square. Let's just make this huge. Okay, yep, a very big square. So typically, instead of just seeing it as like one giant pattern, okay, so what's very common if you do that is you sort of like mess up one corner, or like you sort of undershoot, maybe something like this, or like, I don't know, something of that sort. You tend to get sort of messed up if you see it all at once. But what you want to do with chunking is, yeah, split it into more simple steps. So what we saw earlier with sort of like 1, 2, and then another 1, 2. So if you process it this way and play it as two simple steps, then it makes it a lot easier to digest and not get overwhelmed by the amount of notes. And we can, you can also chunk patterns in multiple ways, right? Like if, let's say like up and down motions are a lot easier for us than left to right motions, then we can actually chunk the pattern this way, for example. We can do like focus on the first note, and then we distinguish these two notes as its own part, so that we just focus on this up to down motion, or like top down motion, and then we have the last circle as well. Or we can actually just focus on it as a triangle, so to speak, or we can do a triangle the other way around, sort of like this. So there's a lot of different ways to chunk patterns. This way we have 1, 2, 3, and then we focus on the last note individually. So basically, chunking in simple terms is breaking down complex patterns into simpler individual steps. And yeah, some might argue you can also just split it into 4 individual nodes, which is fine if it's doable for you, but it's a lot of like brain work to see each individual circle when it originally looks like this. So just hopefully that made sense. Okay, I'm gonna try to yeah, I know I also explained chunking in previous episode, I think on reading. So yeah, but I wanted to sort of get that out again, in case you guys were not super familiar. But yes, hopefully that all made sense. And okay, so the other aspect of easy mod, I would say, is rhythm sense, like I mentioned earlier, because since the note shows up so soon before you're supposed to play the pattern, you sort of have to feel out when it's actually supposed to be played based on the music. And picking up on repetitions of like how the rhythm of the map has typically been going is very, very helpful. Lots of repeated concepts from previous episodes, I feel, but yeah, I think if you understand all those previous concepts, then it'll hopefully make a lot of sense. So yeah, so for these triangles, for example, if you tend to get overwhelmed, just focus on the step before first, or like the notes before first, and like sort of make a distinction between, like in your head, between like the different parts of the map, I guess. Okay, so I want to talk about the skin as well. So the reason why I'm using different skin for easy mod, and this is the skin that I typically use for easy. Disclaimer, I do not consider this to be the best skin in the world for easy. In reality, there really is no best skin in the world for anything. But typically, easy mod, so in order to help you sort of distinguish the patterns into like distinct sections, it helps a lot to have very vibrant combo colors. And oh, hey, it sounds a lot like what I said at the end of OCPHD when I talked about easy mod. You guys should check that out if you guys have not already seen OCPHD. But anyway, for that reason, a lot of people use skins very similar to the default skin, because the default skin actually has very vibrant combo colors. Like these combo colors are actually the same as the default skin. It's just that, like, okay, honestly, there are very little changes from this skin to the default, default skin to this skin. And the spinner obviously is different, the cursor and the numbers in the circles, and the 300s are invisible. I think that's like kind of it, to be honest. But yeah, so hopefully that sort of makes sense so far. Okay, so how do I describe this? Yeah, I think it's possible to play easy with just one combo color, but it does help a lot with distinguishing the map into separate parts, because that is sort of what the combo colors are trying to do for you in the first place anyway. So yeah, I think a lot of people, some modern skins have them removed, especially, okay, so high AR skins, there's a lot of high AR skins that tend to be like white. You don't really need chunking at very high perch rates, because there's like not much on the screen at once anyway. Oh, nice through them. But yeah, for really dense stuff, it helps a lot to have different combo colors. Oh, okay, look at that pattern. That pattern is insane. Wait a minute. Okay, a pattern like this, that's like sort of linear. Chunking it and breaking it down. This is a good example of a pattern that I think chunking really helps with, so that you don't just sort of get overwhelmed or like snap to the wrong spot, like go like this or something. So yes, very, very valuable. I think easy mod in general. So you might hear people suggest easy mod as being helpful for getting better at reading. So people are like, oh, how do I get better at reading? I was like, oh, play easy mod, and you'll obviously like naturally get better at reading. There is merit to that, I would say, because it has a much larger requirement for chunking, basically. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, chunking can be practiced on any map, but if you're really struggling with chunking, then I would probably suggest dabbling in easy mod a little bit. And oh, okay, one thing I want to show off. So you have 3 lives in easy mod. So along with the HP getting cut in half, if you notice when I die, it brings my health back all the way up. And that, what is it? That happens twice. So yeah, you have 2 lives. Okay, so for kinds of maps that you should play with easy mod, I think this really comes down to like whatever song you like. Whatever is comfortable for you to read as well. Like whatever is like suitable for your like current pattern processing abilities. But for the most part, I think, okay, actually, like farm maps are some of the trickier maps to read with easy mod, I would say. I think older maps are probably the friendliest because they were sort of designed to be a little dense anyway. But yeah, if you play a farm map with easy mod, you'll end up like, okay, so like the big 1-2 sections, it's actually really tricky because if you lose your spot, like everything just looks the same and everything kind of blends together. So it's actually kind of tricky to play those patterns. Because yeah, if you get off, then it's actually kind of hard to get back on the pattern. Okay, this map in particular is, I think, a good practice for just like, you really have to be in flow with a rhythm in a map like this with easy mod, I'd say. And sort of, okay, so I think looking ahead and counting the length of bursts. Oh, I'm like trying to do it to see if that's like viable advice to say, but it takes so much of my focus. Yeah, easy mod is definitely a focus mod as well. So if you struggle with like pattern processing or focus or anything like that, I think go for it. It's a good way to practice, but it's not necessary to practice those skills either. As long as you find something that challenges those skills, then that's really what matters. Oh, God. Yeah, basically looking ahead to see how long like the rhythms are, like in a map like this, like counting the bursts is a good strategy, I think. And then like sort of remember them in like steps. So instead of seeing like instead of just being like, oh my god, so many circles on the screen at once, like there's parts where it's like, let's find an example actually. You can do it, editor, please load. I think there's a storyboard. Sometimes it takes a long time to load, but oh yeah, okay, there we go. So see, it looks so much friendlier when you look in the editor without easy mod. But okay, so here you see, so this is a double and then a triple and then basically a single tap and then 5 notes. So instead of just seeing like so many notes on the screen at once, you probably want to just be like, okay, 2, 3, 1, 5 or something like that. That is one way to go about it. Sort of chunking it into separate sections and remembering them separately. The best example I can, like, or I guess analogy that I can give for chunking is kind of like tying your shoes. Let me start this map and then I'll sort of try to explain what I mean by that. But basically, like when you learn to tie your shoes, like you have to split it into like 4 or 5 separate steps. Like, you know, like you're like a little kid and they're teaching you how to tie like shoelaces, and you have to like really think hard about each separate step. But like now that you've been spending so long just tying shoelaces, you can probably do it as like all one step without thinking about it. Like you don't even sort of distinguish one step from the next. I mean, okay, maybe you do, but I think for the most part, most of you probably know what I'm talking about. So yeah, my point with that is basically splitting complex tasks into simple ones first until you sort of get used to it. Like a square, for example. So the first time you see a square pattern and like you really can't hit it consistently, and once you start practicing chunking squares and then get more consistent at playing it as like 2 separate lines, for example, then over time you will become it'll become more natural for you to play a square, and you might still subconsciously split it into like 2 lines in your head, but it's kind of just like tying a shoelace. Like you might subconsciously split it into like the separate steps that you learned when you were younger, but hopefully that sort of makes sense. So yeah, chunking, there's a pretty big learning curve to easy mod, I would say. And so okay, so regarding that, so let's say like every complex pattern that like you've played like, I don't know, like so many times that you sort of have it down, like, oh, square, OMG, square. Eventually they sort of enter your like pattern library, and like once you see that pattern, it'll take a lot less time to sort of figure out how to play properly. You sort of have like, yeah, like a library of patterns in your head that you know how to play comfortably already. Oh! Okay. Interesting, I did not tap the right amount of times there, but you know... Okay, so that's one thing about Osu is you can over-tap. I know some rhythm games that like if you tap an extra amount of times, then you get punished, but that doesn't happen with Osu. But yeah, anyway, to be honest, I think easy mod is a nice way to sort of relax, I guess. I think, yeah, it's just like a chill way to like play calmer maps while still sort of being challenged, especially if you're not super comfortable with the mod. But okay, finishing what I was saying earlier, like the first time you see a certain pattern, it might just be like super complicated for you, but practice that pattern enough, and then from then on, like every time... oh almost did not read that properly. You will start to recognize the same kinds of patterns in different maps, and you might see one pattern in a like in one map, and you're like, oh, I remember really struggling to read that same kind of pattern in a previous map, but now you sort of have it down, and it's a lot more natural for you to process that pattern easily because you've already practiced it a lot. I'm not sure why like I can't put that into words, but I think hopefully most of you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so overall, I think the skill curve with easy mod sort of comes from the increase in note density. Like as you get better at easy mod, you sort of play maps with more and more dense like patterns, I guess, or like the maps that are more and more dense as a whole. So naturally that typically involves increasing in star rating, but it's less about the mechanical difficulty when you have easy mod and more about the fact that there's so many more nodes on the screen at once. Usually if a map is around your difficulty range in like with the easy mod, it's probably not because of the mechanical difficulty, and more because that's sort of where your note density processing ability lies. But yeah, definitely, and especially when you're trying to read with the easy mod, having your volume sort of turned up and being able to listen to the music properly, sort of get in flow with the rhythm, is probably one of the best advices. And like on top of pattern processing, right? Top of chunking, those two things combined, I think, will help you out a lot in getting more comfortable with the note density and sort of getting into the mod as a whole. But yes, and then as usual, songs you like first, simple maps first, and sort of get acclimated. As you know, Fancy Lad in his interviews last week was using the word acclimated a lot, and it's gotten into my vocabulary when discussing like getting into a certain thing. But anyway, hopefully that made sense. And this skin, by the way, will be linked in the description as usual, and along with all the maps that I played. But hopefully you took something out of this rambly, sort of very more scatterbrained than usual type episode. But yeah, easy mod definitely takes a lot more focus to play. But yeah, if you guys are watching in the future, check out my other videos, future episodes, because I upload these every single day. And yeah, I think that's just about it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.